Greetings. This is kvci.blogspot.com, George Boston Ryan's, YouTube Boston G.B.R. This evening I want to talk to you about what is reported in the Valdosta Times today. That's a local newspaper here in South Georgia. We are a metro city, and as you know, January marks the birthday. It marks the memorials around the nation and around the world for one Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., wherein events will be going on throughout the city of Valdosta. I want to talk to you this evening about what is on the front page of the Valdosta Times. And it reads, Martin Luther King event began New Year's Day. In this article, it talks about the celebration will bring in the new year with a boom. They go on to talk about the Valdosta-Lowndes County Martin Luther King Jr. Commemoration Association opens this year's events with the Emancipation Proclamation ceremony at 4 p.m. Sunday, January the 1st. Greater Mount Carmel Ministries, 1106 Lake Park Road. I contend that this is a beautiful day or month. However, just to get together or assembled in groups of 300, 400, 500 people to pay tribute to Dr. King during one day or 1 month, yet ignore the problems in our community for the rest of the 11 months is a disgrace, and it should be an embarrassment to all patriotic Americans, especially those in the black African American communities, with all the problems that we are having, to come together and to eat, wine and dine and laugh and joke and frolic is of little to no use at all. The Valdosta Times reporter goes on to say, this event includes the President Abraham Lincoln executive order that freed the slaves reading. In other words, there will be a reading about Mr. Lincoln freeing the slaves. But my question in Valdosta, with all the problem that we have, what is being done to free the minds of men? The parents who call me about their relatives around the cities that are in an at-will to work state, wherein they are fired for good cause, bad cause, or for no cause at all. Are these issues being addressed? Is the 30 deaths in the Valdosta-Lowndes County Jail since 1994 to 2009 being addressed? We are a small metro city, yet we are leading the state of Georgia in jail deaths. Yet I haven't heard anything about these patriotic followers and event holders for Martin Luther King holiday. Why aren't these 500 to maybe 1,000 people coming together to take action as Dr. King did while he lived upon this universal plane? Moreover, what good are all these ceremonies if these members and these citizens are not members of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the NAACP, or any other civil rights organizations to actually address the ills in our community with black African American boys and girls filling the penal institutions? Just one day or 1 month, it's not good enough. And this is why, George Boston Ryan, myself, this is why I am a non-participant, for the most part, for bogus ceremonies with little to no outreach after these events have passed. The article continued to talk about The association hosts its community service project dealing with Habitat for Humanity. In other words, they're going to come together undoubtedly and work on a habitat house. All this is good too. And I commend them for everything that they're doing. However, what about the Section 3? What about Title 6? What about equal employment in the city annex, ensuring that blacks in the local community that are qualified have equal access to the jobs as everybody else in the community? What about the waitresses in our various restaurants, wherein black waitresses can barely be found in the majority of restaurants in our communities? What about the tall buildings, the larger buildings downtown? Do blacks have equal access to owning these buildings through grants, etc., etc.? And are they getting the support from their elected officials? These are issues that needs to be addressed by this great committee, in my most humble opinion. The January 15th program, commemoration service, will be at 3:30 p.m., 3 o'clock p.m. at St. Paul AME Church on Asher Street. Then at 11 o'clock a.m., January 16th, youth program will be held at Mathis Auditorium. Of course, the luncheon is free. And then it goes in this article, thanks to the K. Harris and Dean Poling, the story about Dean Poling, wherein it talk about Martin Luther King was born January 15, 1929. And it talk about how he rose to prominence during the civil rights era. This man didn't just rise to prominence, he earned it, he worked. He didn't just go and eat hamburgers and fried chicken and barbecue turtle eggs. He didn't just show and tell and listen to little children as they give speeches. He didn't just sit down and listen to some dignitary come to speak on his birthday or some special event. Dr. King was in the streets addressing the issues, and by him addressing the issues and going to jail and life being threatened and have his home bombed and etc., etc. This is how he worked his way to prominence. He didn't just rise, he worked. And this is what we must do as work. That's the best way that we can honor this great civil rights legend and hero. And so we are going to close this out. But I ask all those who would gather on Dr. King's birthday, what about the alleged voter fraud in Brooks County? What about the elderly people that were allegedly intimidated by the G.B.R? What is the members of the Martin Luther King Committee doing about that? Are they a member of the NAACP? Do they even have a table at these events to register people for the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the organization that Dr. King worked under trying to bring improvements in the United States of America for all citizens? What about the elderly people that called me and told me that they refused to go back to the polls and vote in the runoff elections in Brooks County because they was afraid of the G.B.R, of voter intimidation? Why has the local news media, for the most part, refused to be as vigilant in reporting the subject matter of the economically oppressed, as John Roberts and myself been working to try to get the lower impoverished communities included in some of the contracts in the Hudson Docket and Orally West and other areas and aspects of our community? Why hasn't that been addressed by the concerned citizens of the Martin Luther King fiasco? And I'm included in that, by the way. Why have not these people also asked, why is it that we could have a state senator, the late Senator Robert Brown, and the civil rights legend that marched with Martin Luther King, Tyrone Brooks, and David Lucas, the longest serving member in the General Assembly, traveled down to Brooks County on 2 or 3 different occasions, and the South Georgia news media totally ignored everything that they did to support and protect voters' rights in the state of Georgia? What have they done to align themselves with the real work of Dr. King and others who travel that civil rights line of Holy Divine? What have the leaders of these organizations and concerned citizens of our community said about Equipment 10 receiving recognition from senators and called the Equipment 10 to the Capitol in Atlanta, Savannah, Macon? Why haven't they asked why and how could nearly 200 people be ignored at Walker Street Auditorium in Quitman? How could that be? Do you know anything about that? How could a 105 vehicle car motorcade be ignored by the local press when citizens from the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the conference that Martin Luther King served in, traveled from Hayhara to Folsom Bridge, where Mary Turner was lynched, doused in motor oil and gasoline, and burned? Why have not these people celebrated and showed respect for other events, real live events in our community? For when we do this, my beautiful brothers and sisters, we are truly keeping the dream of Dr. King alive, but just assembling and eating and dancing and drinking, and that's not how Dr. King celebrated his birthday. And I'm not criticizing anyone, because I used to do the same thing. I used to be to all of these events. And isn't it strange that the very people who mostly fight and follow the footsteps of Dr. King and who are threatened, have their life threatened for trying to stand up in their communities, is not even on program at many of these events? So why is this? Why would you ignore the very people who are carrying on the organization that Dr. King started? It don't make sense to me. Now, I'm not exposing black business. I'm not making us look bad. But somewhere I read, Jesus said, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set and make you free. And so if what I'm saying is not truth, then call me and let's debate the issue and let's cut another clip. In fact, I invite you to sit next to me and challenge me on what I'm saying on this video. I would love for you to do that, for I believe in the teachings of the Jesus you say you believe in. Rosa Parks, it talks about King being a young preacher. And it talks about how in the mid-1950s, when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white person on a Montgomery bus, King became a leader of a 385-day Montgomery bus boycott. Where are your bus boycott? Are you fighting to get buses and transportation in Valdosta, a city wherein people don't have vehicles, nor do they have sidewalks on Troop Street and Forest Street to walk? Are you fighting for that? Don't you think that would be better to carry on the dream of Dr. King than having these events wherein you lock yourself out of the real works and activities that King gave his life for? Can we not say that we are playing a game with Dr. King in the same manner that many Christians are placating the birth of Jesus on Christmas? And if you know better, then should not we all do better? Why repeat the same thing over and over again every year? These same people are not involved in the cutting-edge issues of civil and human rights that affects the impoverished people on a daily basis that call me and others How could we miss the dream of Dr. King? How could we misinterpret that man's life and legacy and the work that he did in such a brief period of time? Dr. King was not about these ceremonies. Dr. King was not up for people telling about the awards that he received and the Nobel Peace Prize that he won. Dr. King made it clear before his funeral. And another thing, the paper said that Dr. King was assassinated on the balcony in a Memphis hotel. Dr. King was not assassinated. Dr. King was murdered. He was murdered. He wasn't assassinated. The man was murdered. So what are we doing to counter the condemnation of our beloved president by Fox News and Hannity and Rush Limbaugh and Black Star columnist Star Parker and Carol Thomas and others, and Frank Bonner's he on 105.9? And how could it be that active duty generals and retired colonels and retired generals can get on national TV and criticize our beloved president, which is a new precedent in the United States of America? I'm a retired veteran. That was one thing that we did not do. We did not do that. So what has happened to the dream of Dr. King in reality? So have we allowed fear to control us? Dr. King sure as hell didn't allow fear to rule him. So if we're going to live the dream of Dr. King, then we got to ream out from that dream something that will bring us alive, not something to keep us in a dead state of ignorance that will be passed on to our children. And every January we get together and placate, duplicate, and imitate a man who we follow in words only, but not in actions, not in works, and not in deeds. I believe it's time for a change. What about you? This is kvci.blogspot.com doing what I do because it's time that it be done. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye. We gone.